Welcome back to the show, race fans. Even though the 2009 season hasn't officially wrapped up, a few notable drivers and teams are making some moves for the 2010 season. Jamie McMurray has signed on to the merging Earnhardt Ganassi team and will be taking on duties in the number 1 car for the departing Martin Truex Jr. as he jumps over to Michael Waltrip Racing. Bobby Labonte will run the number 71 car full-time in 2010 for TRG Motorsports. So a lot of shuffling going around in NASCAR. What are your thoughts on this? There's a lot of big moves going on, a lot of talks about this offseason.
Well, my first thought is, who is TRG Motorsports? It really is the main question. This is a team that really a lot of us have never even heard of, but I did some research before the show. They made their name in street racing. Street stock cars is where they made their racing at. They've only been involved in NASCAR since 2007. So still a fairly new team. They've got a couple Truck Series drivers, not doing too well, but they still have those drivers. So Labonte, he's getting older. He couldn't find a ride. For him to have a full-time ride in this stage, I think he'll take it wherever he can.
Absolutely. Bobby Labonte said he's really excited about the opportunity to run with this team full-time. He's done part-time racing for them before, but
this year, as a matter of fact,
he's really excited to be able to get in there, continue on what they've started, build on what they've started, and hopefully win some races. They have sponsorship through the first half of the season with TaxSlayer.com.
TaxSlayer.com.
They're still looking for some sponsorship for afterwards. But I think it's going to be a good move for Bobby Labonte and for the racing team. It's good to see some of the older guys get up there and get some full-time rides. The other big news, Jamie McMurray. Jamie McMurray leaving Roush Fenway, moving to the new team of Earnhardt and Ganassi Racing, and jumping in the old Bass Pro Shop number 1 car because Martin Truex is going over to Michael Waltrip Racing. What do you think about that?
Well, McMurray, he's a guy who the last couple weeks has really jumped himself up in the chase, or not the chase, but the standings. And what I mean by that is, a few weeks ago, he was barely in the top 30 in the standings. And then back at the beginning of November, he won the race at Talladega. McMurray has jumped all the way to 22nd in points from barely being in the top 30 a couple weeks ago, which is good for a guy this time of year, going out on a high note. And whether that really was involved with this deal or not, I'm not sure. But I think it has a large part to do with the new deal that he got. He's going over. He'll take over Martin Truex Jr., who's going to Michael Waltrip Racing. I still don't quite understand why he's making that move. You're going from – they're equal teams, but obviously Earnhardt Ganassi now is what it's going to be, is still more established than Michael Waltrip Racing, I think. I know Michael Waltrip, he's the big name and all, but another good thing for McMurray, he'll be teamed with Juan Pablo Montoya, who's been the real breakout driver this year as far as the chase goes. He sits 6th in the standings right now. If you put those two together on the same team, give it another year or two to develop, that could be very good.
Well, Jamie McMurray was noted as saying that he was looking forward to seeing some familiar faces. As you may remember, from 2003 to 2005, Jamie McMurray raced for Chip Ganassi and Chip Ganassi Racing. I think that McMurray, obviously, he probably didn't want to leave Roush Fenway in a perfect world, but a couple years ago, NASCAR instituted a rule that would go into effect in the 2010 season on which said that you can only have up to 4 cars per race team. Now, Roush Fenway has Greg Biffle, Carl Edwards, David Reagan, Matt Kenseth, and Jamie McMurray. One of them had to go. They decided to make it Jamie McMurray. That's their call. Not going to get into whether that was the right move or not.
I'm not a fan of it.
But he's making a move to, I think, the team that'll be the best fit for him.
It will be, and it gives him a fresh start. I mean, I still don't like the fact of him leaving Roush Racing because Roush Racing, they're one of the superpowers in the sport, next to Hendrick, as far as development, the quality of racing, the owner of the cars. You've got Jack Roush. Jack Roush is one of the best owners in the history of NASCAR. Probably next to Rick Hendrick, let's be honest. He's got the money. He's got the parts. For him to be leaving that team, I still don't think he's leaving on his own terms. I really believe that. I believe they want to go with David Reagan as the 4th driver instead of McMurray, which Reagan's younger. He's got more promise, yes. But McMurray is the more proven driver, in my opinion. But that's just me.
Well, McMurray is going to go to a team where I believe he's going to fit in better, and we'll have to go from there. Well, it's the time of the show where we take a few minutes to answer some of your questions from our Facebook On Pit Road fan page. So without any further ado, let's get going. Andrew Stecca from Bel Air, Maryland asks, Dear guys, do you think that Jimmie Johnson has replaced Jeff Gordon as the #1 guy at Hendrick Motorsports? And if so, how do you think Gordon, a 4-time Cup champion himself, feels about being the #2 guy? That is an interesting question. Yes, I think he has been replaced. He is replacing Gordon as the #1 guy. The guy's won more races than any other driver this entire decade. The setups are more in tune for what he likes right now. You know why he wins the most races? Jeff Gordon understands that, I'm sure. So the cars are going to be built more to Jimmie Johnson's liker. He likes a looser race car. That's just the way it is. Do I think Gordon is happy about that?
No.
Of course not. What driver wants to be the #2?
Exactly, yeah. Especially at a superpower like Hendrick. I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I'm going to say he has not replaced Gordon, and I'll throw just one stat out there, and I'll be done that says why. In a poll of not only fans, major writers, everything about which driver is most recognizable in the sport of NASCAR, we're talking about a guy like Jimmie Johnson here who's going for his 4th straight title, which is unprecedented. 33% of the people, you say Jimmie Johnson's name, they know who that is. Jeff Gordon, on the other hand, 85%. No Jeff Gordon compared to 33 for Jimmie Johnson. Until those numbers continue to rise, I mean, I know the last couple years Johnson has had the better performance, yes, but as far as a recognizable standpoint goes, Jeff Gordon is still blowing Jimmie Johnson out of the water. He really is. So until Johnson gets those numbers higher, not necessarily the fan approvals, but the fan recognition, I still don't think he's the #2 guy.
Okay, so Andrew, to answer your question, on the racetrack, yes, I would say that Johnson has taken the #1 spot at Hendrick Motorsports. Off the racetrack and being recognizable to the fans?
Nope.
Not yet, but who knows what the future holds.
It's getting there.
Anyway, next letter. Sean Cradle from Baltimore, Maryland asks, do you think NASCAR has improved since Bill France Jr. took over for his father, Bill France Sr.? Why or why not? That would take an entire show, but we don't have that kind of time. So we're going to try and take kind of skim on that topic a little bit. I'm going to start with you, Connor.
I think it has, and one simple reason, ratings. Since he took over, ratings have gone through the roof. NASCAR is one, as far as the sport goes, a lot of people, well, if you ask them, well, NASCAR is not a sport, NASCAR is not a sport. Statistically, NASCAR, the ratings have rose higher than any other sport in America. The recognition factor is going higher. The popularity is going higher as well, and that is due to the big TV contracts with ABC, with ESPN, Fox, TNT. And that is all Bill France Jr., not all Bill France Jr., but since he took over, TV watchers have gone up, the viewership has gone up, the ratings have gone up. And I think it's all his doing.
Absolutely. You'll always get the argument that people say that Bill France Jr. has put more into the sport for the ratings, for TV, for money in sponsors' pockets.
Very true.
Than for the sport itself. But on the flip note, if he had not have done that, then NASCAR would not be as big as it is today. So I think that they both brought different parts to the table. I think that there are things that Bill France Sr. did better than Bill France Jr. and vice versa. So that question is kind of one of those pros and cons type deal. Anyway, well, that's all the time we have for viewer mail. So that brings us to the green-white checkered finish and my final word. Champion is the theme. So let's get right to it. Barring a major global catastrophe, Jimmie Johnson will win his 4th Sprint Cup Series championship this week down in Homestead, Florida. When he hoists up the 2009 Sprint Cup trophy, he will be entering an elite club of 4-time Cup champions that until this year was a club of 3. This is an awesome accomplishment no matter how it's done. The fact that he's done it in consecutive seasons makes it legendary. Yes, arguments can be made that because he has won all his titles in the Chase era, that did not require him to lead all year long, thus making his title hunt easier. This is a point that we have discussed here on this show many times. But no matter how you slice the bread, what Mr. Johnson is about to accomplish will put him in the history books as one of the greats of the sport. And I have a feeling that before his story is over and the book is closed on Jimmie Johnson's career, more records and trophies will be attached to this superstar's name. Well, that's all the time we have for this show. I want to thank Radio BIM's Connor Fleegle, and I didn't do too many of your nicknames this week.
No, not today.
Join us next week when we wrap up the 2009 season and give you a preview of next year.